Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Cadet 3rd Class Hayden Moody. Welcome to the 28th Annual National Character and Leadership Symposium. It is my privilege to welcome you and our guest speaker, Chief Master Sergeant Thomas Case. Chief Case enlisted in May of 1997. After graduating the Tactical Air Control Party Schoolhouse, he reported to the 13th Air Support Operations Squadron, the Gunslingers, at Fort Carson, Colorado. There, he was the close air support expert, a joint tactical attack controller for the Army. As a highly skilled airman, he lived, trained, and executed the joint mission of the 4th Infantry Division. He lived by the TACP motto, "The strong shall stand, the weak will fall by the wayside." In 2001, he was picked up by what is now known as the 17th Special Tactics Squadron. This coveted unit required yet another grueling selection process. Serving alongside Green Berets, Rangers, SEALs, and more, it was at this unit that Chief Case made his marks on history. Chief Case was awarded the Silver Star Medal, once in 2003 and again in 2009, while supporting the Army's 75th Ranger Regiment. There are only 2 other airmen in Air Force history that have received 2 Silver Stars. What distinguishes men like Chief Case is not their awards, but their refusal to rest on them. After deploying over a dozen times in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom, he continues to serve as the Chief Enlisted Manager back at the 13th ASOS. He manages the daily operations of 3 brigades and division staff of airmen aligned with the 4th Infantry Division. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege to present to you Chief Master Sergeant Thomas Case.
Hey, thank you for that introduction, and it's really my distinguished honor to be here and be part of NCLS. I can't think of a better way to help get some of this message out and a little bit of this testimony. So with that being said, what I want to talk about a little bit is I want to touch on resiliency. And you'll see me turn a little bit from the camera here and there, but I've got some talking points that I think are important in regards to my story and how we've come full circle over the last almost 24 years of military service for myself. So when we talk about resiliency, and you define it, it's really the capacity to recover quickly from difficulty. And of course, there's a lot of et cetera that's associated with that. And I often think that the DoD enterprise in its entirety can tend to overuse the term and its application. That application should be vetted to be appropriate. And from the definition, one would surmise that it covers a single issue. Our airmen collectively don't always understand what the united front of what we term resiliency can span from a single incident, a week's worth, a month's, etc. More importantly, and I know I'm not the only one to experience this, but basically covers a span of 2 decades. With that, I want to thank you for listening to this testimony. So I grew up in small town in Mexico. I grew up a town called Socorro. Some people might be able to find it on a map, but it's about an hour or so south of Albuquerque. And growing up as the son of a game warden, I was really one of the few white kids in town, the Anglo kid in town. And so I spent a lot of time fighting, physically fighting. And those altercations kind of, they give you some physical toughness, but I don't believe it always gives you the mental toughness either. After I graduated Socorro, I went to a military college in Roswell called New Mexico Military Institute. Some of our cadets may be familiar with it as one of the preparatory courses prior to going to USAF Campus Maine there. I met my first wife there, thought we were in love, got married at a pretty young age, around 20, and had a young baby at home, my oldest son, Devin. During that time, I was kind of bouncing from job to job trying to support this family, and I knew that I needed more. I needed something more, not just for myself, but for my family. And after having been to military school, I decided I was going to go ahead and enlist in the military, and I knew I was going to go Air Force. When I did that, I didn't do it out of patriotic fervor. I literally did it because my young family needed health insurance. And this is peacetime, 1997. And so I enlisted, and I went to basic training, and I felt compelled to know that I needed something. I wanted to do something cool, something actionable, something GI Joe-ish, if you will, and really get out there and get after the mission. And trying to discover that in the Air Force was a difficult thing because the Air Force Special Warfare brand wasn't a thing 24 years ago. I was able to figure out what a TACP was, I applied for it and tried out at basic training, and I off to Hurlburt Field I went for my training. Being a TACP is really awesome, but I'm not here to promote the job. But I'm going to tell you how much I've enjoyed it, to include the trials and tribulations that are associated with that. After basic and in our tech school and our training pipeline, coming full circle, I was a brand new airman here at the 13th ASOS at Fort Carson, Colorado, where I'm broadcasting from here. And it was a kind of a peacetime thing. We had some Kosovo stuff going on, and all we did was we trained and we trained and we trained and we trained and we trained some more. Spent many rotations at the National Training Center in support of whatever Army Maneuver Brigade, and learning how to be a TACP and learning to what it means to be what we define as a JTAC now, a Joint Terminal Attack Controller. All those rotations to NTC, hanging out at Fort Carson here at the 13th Air Support Operations Squadron, I desired more. There had to be more to this job than just going to these combat training centers time and time again. So I put on a package and I assessed for special tactics, special tactics in a whole. It was funny because as I'm getting ready to prepare that package, I was a senior airman, E4, one of the NCOs in the squadron at the time who wanted to do the special tactics thing so bad, but just couldn't do it for medical reasons. He came up and he says to me, he's like, Tommy, just because you get picked up and go to AFSOC and do the special tactics thing, that doesn't always mean you're going to see combat. I was young. I was eager, like many of us do in the military. I wanted adventure. Lo and behold, fate had a hand. I was picked up after assessment for the special tactics world. And in August of 2001, I moved to Fort Benning, Georgia. Now, between that assessment and that PCS, there was some marital strife going on. Like I said, we were married young. Had a young baby now, 2 kids. Devin was, I think he was about 4 years old, and my daughter Savannah was born just before that move. So I looked at getting selected in that PCS to Fort Benning, Georgia, to the 17th Special Tactics as a new mission, a new location, and hopefully, kind of clinging on to hope, hopefully, which is a great course of action, a marriage refresh. And this is about the time frame of August 2001. I get to this new unit, the new guy. It was pretty awful. It would probably be what we constitute as hazing in today's environment. But I was smoked, and for those unfamiliar with the term, made to do lots and lots of exercises by the NCOs charged over me at the time. And I did have a line number for staff sergeant, but I hadn't sewn on yet. And I had a lot to learn too, a big, huge learning curve. So they did everything, they being the people that I was stationed with, did everything in their power to make me quit or make me want to quit. I refused to do so. I didn't feel very good about it either, and I did not enjoy going to work. Something happened that kind of shook that up, and we'll refer to that as September 11th. So the terror attacks on the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and the crash out in Pennsylvania significantly shook the world, and was some very emotional events for many of us. And the toil of that event continued to be an emotional event for many of us, myself included, over the span of the next 20 years, give or take. The funny thing is as we geared up to invade Afghanistan to fight Al-Qaeda, I was notified that I was going to Airmen Leadership School. The funny thing about that is, as you cadets will know, as you grow up through the ranks after your commission, is professional military education. Yes, even that trumps combat sometime. So as all my squadron mates deployed with 3rd Ranger Battalion and the 75th Ranger Regiment, I stayed back and I went to Airmen Leadership School, a prerequisite for staff sergeant. They got back from their initial deployment shortly after when I was graduating Ranger School, and I specifically remember my soon-to-be boss at the time and a great friend of mine now. He pulled out these dirt canisters out of his bag as they were putting their stuff away from that deployment, and he says, "Hey, Tommy, you see this? This is dirt in Pakistan. I hope you get to touch it someday." And that resonated because I was like, man, I just want to get after the mission. I want to go deploy. I feel left out of the club because I went to PME. And as a chief, I understand that now. So I got my opportunity. That spring of 2002, I was told to get my stuff together and I was going to deploy. And I did. And I think the word was like, hey, put Sergeant Case, me, put that guy somewhere where he can't really hurt anything. I hadn't really done anything. There's no name of myself whatsoever. So they put me on the QRF outside of Kandahar with one of the Ranger platoons. Quick Reaction Force, QRF. Normally a pretty drab mission and not a lot of action. Spent a lot of time lifting weights and playing board games in a tent outside of Kandahar with a guy from the UK. Well, the call does go on, and the call goes up. And what do you know? I'm on a CSAR mission. A C-130 had crashed outside of Gardez, and we reacted to it. This is my first time outside the wire. We get there, we land, we're recovering dead Americans. And I distinctly remember the smell because the shape of that C-130 in flames was a perfect outline of a C-130. While we're there, the ground force commander says, what is on station aircraft-wise? I said, there's an AC-130. He says, great. The AC-130 reports some stuff going on in regards to a truck full of potential bad guys. And the ground force commander says, if they get any closer than this amount, I want you to go ahead and engage them. I'm young, I'm impressionable, first time outside the wire, and I've got all this firepower under my control. They get closer. I have food poisoning on the mission. I'm suffering through that. I won't get into the gory details on that piece. And we end up engaging these guys, the bad guys in a truck coming our way. That's a lot to digest for a young kid that's out on his first mission, a newly minted staff sergeant. And we go home. We recover back to where we're staying. Finally have an opportunity to call home. Remember the marital strife. I call home. She says, I'm cheating on you. I'm pregnant. And everything that you could possibly imagine to go wrong with a marriage while not at home, but specifically. I have a couple of weeks to digest that. I come home. I tried to stay married. Didn't work out, obviously. 2003, we invade Iraq, and I'm with the Rangers still. We have this huge fight at the Haditha Dam where I garnered my first Silver Star, and it was a very bloody fight, very violent fight. While out there, I get a note from my wife, who I have not divorced yet, and it's a note that she could send through the first sergeant, and all it says is like, hey, hope you're doing okay. Haven't heard from you. Savannah wants to go to Disney World, my daughter. And it's just signed with her name. No love you or can't wait to see you, nothing like that. But it's a good pep in my step, right? I'm like, well, maybe things are going to be okay back at the front side. Never happens. We recover from Iraq, and I'd love to sit here and tell the war stories because they're awesome. But we recover from Iraq, and I come home and she's gone. The house is empty. She's moved somewhere else within town. Okay, so be it. I finally realized that maintaining that relationship isn't in the cards. And so we divorce. I retain full custody of my kids. But even with that and the high ops tempo and the high demand, I still met every training opportunity and deployment requirement associated with that. I went to 7-level school in Florida, and I met my wife, my current wife, my last wife, absolutely the love of my life. And she became a really steadfast issue in our lives and was raising those kids and just was a good mom. I transitioned from 3rd Ranger Battalion to what they call Ranger Reconnaissance. And those were just nothing but deploy. And a lot of those deployments, some of them, yeah, they're you kind of sit around and do some stuff and not really action packed. Some of them, on the other hand, were run and gun fights consistently over a period of months. And that wears on you, that wears on the mind, that wears on people. And I know that there might be some people that are watching this broadcast or this video, and they can relate to that, and I got married to Kathy during this time, that same time frame of all that going on. And I was in Ranger Reconnaissance for a period of years. And in 2008, I went back to 3rd Ranger Battalion. And for that flight, I was the flight chief. I spent several rotations with the strike force there. And all we did was target terror camps up in the Hindu Kush, in Afghanistan, and some other localized countries in that area. And it's just a constant stream of violence, and how that's associated and how that plays on the psyche and everything else that's associated with it. Because even back then, we didn't have all the resources available to us now, where I can walk down my hallway and I have an embedded psych and a human performance team to help build and maintain that resilience and recover. I was pretty worn out at this point after multiple deployments in the double digits that I called the commander from Afghanistan, or he called me, I don't know. And we were talking, and I said, "Sir, I need a break. I'm weary, I'm tired, I just need a break." And the answer I always got was just one more. Just give us one more rotation. And of course, being the good airman, being the good TAC PIM, yes, sir, one more. Well, those one mores came to what I thought was going to kind of chill out a little bit, because in 2009, we hit an objective where I garnered my second Silver Star, another significant emotional event. And I came home and I was dealing with so much stuff, and the people like to refer to them as the inner demons, if you will. And I was just miserable to myself. I was miserable to my family. And I'll give a quick anecdote there. Is I came back from that deployment and I said, and my wife, Kathy, I said, let's go to the trailhead. Let's go for a run. Just get out of the house. This is in Georgia. She's like, okay. We go down there. We're walking down this really steep hill and there's gravel and stuff on it. And she slips and she falls on her backside. And and she's physically in pain. And I'm just of the sorts of, hey, get up, dust it off, Ranger on, come on, let's go. And that girl did it. She ran that trail with me, nearly a whimper, but obviously in pain. I took her home. She said, I got to take a hot bath. Her entire tailbone was bruised almost from the bottom of her shoulder blades to the bottom of her coccyx there. I mean, she was really, really bruised and she was literally injured. But me, being the man I was in that mental state, was like, suck it up, buttercup. Let's get on with the mission. And that was to run a nature trail. That was an emotional event as well. There were some words said in regards to my attitude and my anger and and just me being miserable. 2010, I transferred from Fort Benning and I got assigned and I got hired for a job up at Joint Special Operations Command. In the state I was, you never would think that, hey, if I go to JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, maybe I can get a break for a second. No, I transitioned to JSOC up at Fort Bragg. Kathy's with me. The mission started off immediately. And Kathy looks at me and she says, I thought you said this was going to get easier. Working in that organization, it's literally a pound of flesh a day. It can be very, very rewarding. And I didn't realize the reward of that level of work at JSOC until well after the fact. 2011, I went to Iraq and shut it down, or helped shut it down. And my ex-wife calls me and she says, hey, John, the child that was born out of wedlock, or not my biological kid, she's like, hey, he's not doing well in school out here. They think he has ADHD, all these other things. And he's 7 years old. And I've always kind of been involved in his life. And I talked to her on the phone. I said, if it's so bad, just send him to live with me and Kathy. She does. And I'm proud to say that I've raised that boy and Kathy as well from the moment he was basically 7 and he graduates high school this year. So that's pretty cool. So the thing about JSOC is even when you're working at JSOC, man, you're going to miss anniversaries, birthdays, holidays, milestones in kids' lives, everything. And you may be just 15 miles down the road. I could be sitting in Country X one day and be back at JSOC Maine the next and just globetrotting and getting after the war on terror. And again, it goes to that back to that pound of flesh a day. So eventually, after 4 years there, I was able to come back to what we call the normal TACP community. And now I thought, and Kathy thought, I was like, man, we're really gonna be able to catch our breath now. We're gonna catch our breath. I'm literally across the street from JSOC on the Pope Army Airfield side, where there's a TACP unit there, and I go over there, and I'm the group level operations superintendent as a master sergeant in E7. And I'm like, man, I'm going to relearn baseline TACP fundamentals. I'm going to get a breather with Kathy and I. It's going to be great. I was there 3 months, and I open up my email one day and I get the email from the Air Force saying, congratulations on your assignment. The Air Force decided it was in my best interest to send me to Korea for a year by myself after 16 combat deployments and with a wife who was diagnosed with heart disease after some heart attacks that I probably had a hand in, and she's on the Exceptional Family Members Program. So I'm going for a year. I'm going by myself, and it really kind of sucked, knowing that that's what I was going to after, like I said, 16 deployments. Now we face a year in Korea alone, if you will. I do my year there. It goes by fast. FaceTime was a wonderful invention for that time, 2015, where I could just pick up the phone, FaceTime with my wife off Wi-Fi, and keep some semblance of a connection. 2017, we moved to Hawaii. Best thing that ever happened to us, assignment wise. That time in Hawaii allowed us to rekindle and realize that there were problems in our relationship that I wasn't even aware of, and allowed us to focus on those because my ops tempo was low, and I was a senior master at the time. However, I was in a dark spot mentally. I admitted myself to mental health, behavioral health there, and was going through some treatments where I was going to be potentially diagnosed as a high-functioning post-traumatic stress guy, meaning not medicated. I can go about life. I can do my thing. And the thing is as much as I would like to say I suffered, and boo-hoo myself, it's really the extension of who I am that suffered more than I did, and that's my family, and there's so much more to this story, and I'll tell you, audience, 20 minutes just doesn't give it justice, and so when we look back on all these things and we can say, okay, you've been talking for 20-ish minutes, what's the point in all this? Well, the point of it is another definition of resiliency is, and I'm going to look over at my notes real quick, is, it's the ability or the capability of returning to original form, shape, or position after being compressed. Think about our resiliency kind of like a slinky. You push it, it expands. Push it, expands. It walks downstairs. It does all these things. And I really tied the human aspect of that kind of to that analogy. Our mission as members of the military, it can and will compress our relationships, all relationships, not just our spouses, our wives, our kids, our husbands, our mothers, our fathers, but also with our foundation and whatever faith we have. It absolutely compressed my relationship with who I believe is my creator in my faith. And really at the end of the day, having a state of awareness to know when we need a timeout. A mental checkup is the key to our survival in the real world, and if I would have, me raising my hand and saying, I need a break. But the mantra was always, just give us one more, just give us one more. And I did, and I kept giving one more. When we get to that point and you're walking down the road or you're somewhere in a park, I don't know, name your place, and kids love the song Let It Go from the movie Frozen. Personally, I can't stand that movie at this point because I've heard it a million times, but the song Let It Go, it doesn't matter what the words are, but you let it go. Be aware. I'm going to recant a little bit on that one. For the cadets listening to this and for the leaders listening to this, we have a responsibility. We have to be aware. We have to be needed. We have to be needed. And we need to always listen to understand, not just to hear. So with that being said, like I said, I don't believe 20 minutes really can give this testimony justice. I hope I have hit the intent. I hope I have reached something. I hope I have reached someone. And I'm on the global. You can find me. You ever need to reach out? I'm available. Thank you for your time.